Humans rely on vision more than any other special sense. As a result, the visual cortex is several times larger than the cortical area of any other special sense. The eyelids act like windshield wipers. Continual blinking keeps the surface lubricated and free from dust and debris. They also protect the delicate surfaces of the eye by closing firmly. The eyelashes along the margins of the eyelids are very strong hairs. Sensory structures in the root hair plexus monitor each eyelash. Movement of the hair triggers the blinking reflex, which prevents foreign matter from reaching the surface of the eye. The conjunctiva is the layer of epithelium covering the inner surface of the eyelids and the outer surface of the eye. A constant flow of tears keeps the conjunctival surface moist and clean. Tears reduce friction, remove debris, prevent bacterial infection, and provide nutrients and oxygen to the epithelium. The lacrimal apparatus produces, distributes, and removes tears. The lacrimal apparatus of each eye consists of four things: a lacrimal gland, the superior and inferior canaliculi, a lacrimal sac, and a nasolacrimal duct. The wall of the eye consists of three layers: the outer fibrous layer, the intermediate vascular layer, and the inner layer, or the retina. The eyeball is hollow, and its interior is divided into two cavities. The large posterior cavity, also known as the vitreous chamber, contains the gelatinous vitreous body. The smaller anterior cavity has two chambers: the anterior chamber, located between the cornea and the iris, and the posterior chamber, between the iris and the lens. The shape of the eye is established by the vitreous body and the clear aqueous humor filling the anterior cavity. The fibrous layer is the outermost layer of the eye. It consists of the sclera and the transparent cornea. The sclera is the white surface of the eye and covers most of the ocular surface. The cornea is the part of the fibrous layer that is transparent and is continuous with the sclera. The iris is seen through the transparent surface of the cornea. The iris contains blood vessels, pigment cells, and two layers of smooth muscles that are part of the intrinsic eye muscles. Contraction of the intrinsic eye muscles changes the diameter of the pupil, which is the central opening of the iris. The diameter of the pupil decreases when sphincter pupillae contract. Conversely, the diameter of the pupil increases when the dilator pupillae contract. The iris is attached to a ciliary body. The ciliary body consists of ciliary muscles, which are a muscular ring projecting interiorly into the eye. The ciliary zonule or suspensory ligament is the ring of fibers that attaches the lens to the ciliary processes. This adjusts the shape of the lens to focus the image onto the retina. The choroid is a vascular layer within an extensive capillary network that delivers oxygen and nutrients to the retina. The inner layer, or retina, consists of two distinct layers: an outer thin layer called the pigmented layer, and a thicker inner neural layer, which contains the visual receptors and associated neurons. The outermost layer contains the visual receptors. There are two types of photoreceptors: rods and cones. Rods do not detect different colors of light. However, they are very light sensitive and enable us to see in dimly lit rooms at twilight or in pale moonlight. Cones detect different colors and therefore provide us with our color vision. There are three types of cones: red, green, and blue, and their stimulation in various combination provides the detection of the different colors we experience. As you move toward the center of the retina, the density of rods gradually decreases, and the density of cones increases. This area is known as the macula, and it is the area in which the visual image arrives after passing through the cornea and the lens. The macula has no rods. The highest concentration of cones occurs at the center point of the macula. This area is called the fovea centralis, or simply the fovea. The rods and cones synapse with neurons called bipolar cells. Horizontal cells at the same level form a network that inhibits or promotes communication between different photoreceptor and bipolar cells. Bipolar cells then synapse with the layer of ganglionic cells. Amacrine cells, also found in this level, modulate the communication between the bipolar cells and the ganglion cells. The ganglion cells are the first-order neurons in the optic pathway and are the only cells in the retina generating action potentials that will travel to the brain through the optic pathway. The optic disc lies just medial to the fovea centralis. The optic disc is the origin of the optic nerve or cranial nerve 2. From this point, the axons turn and penetrate the wall of the eye, proceeding to the brain. There are no photoreceptors or other retinal structures at the optic disc. Because the light striking this area goes unnoticed, it creates what is commonly called the blind spot. You do not notice a blank spot in your vision field because the involuntary eye movements keep the visual image moving, allowing the brain to fill in the missing information. The chambers of the eye include the anterior, posterior, and vitreous chambers. The anterior and posterior chambers are filled with aqueous humor. The circulation of the aqueous humor forms a fluid cushion that provides an important route for transporting nutrients and wastes. The vitreous chamber contains the vitreous body or vitreous humor. This gelatinous mass maintains the shape of the eye, supports the posterior surface of the lens, and supports the retina by pressing the neural layer against the pigmented layer. The lens focuses the visual shape on the retinal photoreceptors by changing its shape. A dense fibrous capsule covers the entire lens. The capsular fibers intermingle with those of the ciliary zonule. As tension in the ciliary zonule increases, the lens flattens. With the lens flattened, the eyeball is able to focus on distant objects. When the ciliary muscles contract, the ciliary body moves towards the lens. This movement reduces the tension in the ciliary zonule, and the lens assumes a more spherical shape. In this spherical position, the eye is able to focus on nearby objects. The visual pathway is a 3-neuron pathway, beginning in the ganglion cells of the retina and ending in the visual cortex of the cerebrum. Each rod and cone monitors a specific receptive field. A visual image results from processing information provided by the entire receptor population. A significant amount of processing occurs in the retina before the information is sent to the brain because of the interactions between various cell types. The right and left optic nerves reach the diencephalon after a partial decussation at the optic chiasm. At the optic chiasm, approximately half of the fibers proceed toward the lateral geniculate nucleus of the same side of the brain, while the other half cross over to the lateral geniculate nucleus of the contralateral side. Visual information from the left half of each retina synapses at the lateral geniculate nucleus of the left side. Likewise, visual information from the right half of each retina synapses at the lateral geniculate nucleus of the right side. The lateral geniculate nuclei act as a switching center, relaying visual information to reflex centers in the brainstem and cerebral cortex. Some visual information, however, bypasses the lateral geniculate nuclei altogether. For instance, the reflexes controlling eye movement are triggered by information that bypasses the lateral geniculate nuclei to synapse in the superior colliculi. The perception of vision results from the integration of information arriving at the visual cortex of the occipital lobes of the cerebral hemispheres. The visual cortex contains a sensory map of the entire field of vision. Also, each eye receives a slightly different image. The association and integrative areas of the cortex compare the two images and use them to provide us with depth perception. The partial crossover occurring at the optic chiasm ensures that the visual cortex receives a composite picture of the entire visual field. Many centers in the brainstem receive visual information from the lateral geniculate nuclei, or collaterals arising from the optic tracts. Collaterals bypassing the lateral geniculate nuclei synapse in either the superior colliculus or the hypothalamus. The superior colliculus of the mesencephalon issues motor commands, controlling subconscious eye, head, and neck movements in response to visual stimuli. Visual inputs to the suprachiasmatic nucleus of the hypothalamus and the endocrine cells of the pineal gland establish a daily pattern of visceral activity that is tied to the day-night cycle. This is called the circadian rhythm, and it affects metabolic rates, endocrine function, blood pressure, digestive activities, the sleep-wake cycle, and other physiological processes. Thank you for watching.